Want some free stuff and some early access to the videos? Then consider becoming a patron just like these folks. And many thanks to my tool partners.
Well, it's been a while, but Join It is back. Get ready for some half-blind lock join instruction coming up. Boom! Half-blind lock joints are actually fairly simple in theory, but if you don't know how to start, it's very difficult to know the type of pattern that you need to establish throughout the entire procedure to achieve the joint with a nice tight fit. That's what I intend to show you. So if this is your first time here, I want to welcome you. If you like videos like this and want to consider subscribing, be sure and click the notification bell after doing so, and it will notify you anytime that I upload brand new content. You can follow me on social media as well as my Amazon store and Patreon. You can get some free stuff if you decide to support the show. So the first thing that we're going to do is put in your dado stack with the two outer blades sandwiched together. No shims, no nothing, just the two blades, and then tighten them up, making sure that each tooth is alternating so they don't ride on each other, throwing off the thickness of the blade. Now, a traditional drawer has the drawer front that's set back on the drawer side because the traditional lock joint has a 1/4 inch tongue that is led into the side of the drawer. This will keep the strength of the drawer from being pulled back and forth like this very, very stout, because if you put a drawer front in front like this and you just pin nail it from the front, over time the stress of opening and closing the drawer is going to pull the drawer front away from the drawer side. So you always put your drawer front back set of the drawer side and put some kind of a fastener running transverse to it or parallel with the drawer front. Now, because the lock joint, like I said, normally has a 1/4 inch tongue back here and it's flush up front, this is going to have to change with a half blind. We need to push the front forward about 1/4 inch, which pushes the dado on the drawer side up 1/4 inch, and there will be a overhang of the drawer front that will go in front of the drawer side that will cover up any joinery from the drawer bottom that we might have to make. So we're going to have to adjust the location of the dado. So like I said, we're pushing it up 1/4 inch, which is basically a 1/2 inch distance from the front of the drawer side to where the dado ends. So we are going to set our blade distance with the fence a 1/2 inch using this spacer. Now, what I've done with these test pieces is put a piece of tape just as a placeholder so you guys can see what it is I'm attempting to do. I put a shaded area that runs transverse to the length of this board, and it's going to just basically tell you or tell me that I'm putting a dado right there. Now, it's going to be a 1/4 inch deep, but the width is kind of arbitrary. You can make it exactly a 1/4 inch, which is fine, but because we set this 1/2 inch back, whatever is left over towards the end of the board, which is on this side of the dado, it's going to be basically the positive, and we're going to cut the negative on the adjacent piece. So it doesn't matter if it's exactly a 1/4 or a little bit under. You're going to cut the other piece to match it, so it's no big deal as long as you make sure that it's a 1/2 inch from the end. Now, once you've taken all the pieces and batch cut those dados out, you can set them aside. Next will come the adjacent piece for the receiving portion of the tongue that goes into that dado. The first part is, if you notice on the shaded area, there is a taller section, which is basically 3/4 inch deep that we're going to have to hog out. The remainder piece we'll take care of later once we get the tongue size to proper dimension. Now, to establish the height of the blade, you can use the piece that you're going to cut as your gauge. Now, if we overcut this a little bit, it's okay because the overhanging tongue of the drawer front can be sanded down. You just don't want to leave it shy of 3/4 inch thick because it's harder to sand the drawer side than it is the drawer front. So with the depth of the blade established, just center the blade as best you can, because what we're going to do is run it through the blade, pull it back, take the board out, turn it end for end or edge for edge, and run it through again. This will center the groove that we are cutting right now. And we'll just baby step the fence closer and closer to the blade, running it through, flipping it over edge for edge each time until we achieve the tongue thickness that we are looking for that fits the dado in question. With the fit of the tongue the way I like it,
I need to cut away the shaded area right there, which is the excess that will allow this overhang to slide all the way down. Using the piece as a gauge, just set it beside the blade and lower the stack down until it can at least cut that bottom tongue and not the top. With a little bit of sanding and a slight bit of fill, because I'll admit this isn't my best joint I've ever made, this joint will hold up nicely and it looks beautiful. I personally like to see joints on top versus on the side like half-blind dovetails, because the moment you pull the drawer out, it's staring you right in the face, and it's just a beautiful joint, and it's super, super strong. So try this out in your shop. Keep in mind, the most important cut is that very first dado you make on your drawer side. If it is not exactly a ½ inch from the back or from the edge, and you go to make your drawer front and you flip it end for end or edge for edge to center it up, you might get the tongue just right, but if it's not exactly a ½ inch back and it's too close to the edge, you'll have a gap on your lip in connection with the drawer side edge or the end grain. And that's exactly what happened here. I was off by just a fraction and I ended up having to fill just a little bit. But if you don't want to have to do the flipping edge for edge, you can start by cutting the tongue thickness that you want and then just work your way back, just moving the fence away from the blade just a little bit at a time, cutting the groove out until you achieve the tongue thickness that you want. So that can be done either way, but it takes a little bit longer because you can't batch cut very fast. You'll just have to make each cut on all your pieces every time instead of flipping edge for edge on all your pieces. Once you get one laid out, all you got to do is run the rest through one time instead of multiple times. So just keep that in mind. Make sure that first cut is exact. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't done so already, be sure and click the subscribe button with that circle that you see there in the middle. All of my other build videos and SketchUp tutorials you'll find over there as well. I alternate them every 2 weeks. Hope you guys enjoy. See you on the next one. Comment down below what you thought. Boom!